All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So, again, thank you everybody for taking your time to join us this morning, this afternoon, wherever you guys are. As you can see, Andrew and myself are together in person. We're calling in from Lisbon. We're very excited to be having this conversation. And this has been something that we've been working on for the better part of the last year, trying to figure out how are our businesses getting evolving, how is pricing and packaging changing for companies like Liminal, and frankly, every company that's using intelligence to make decisions today. So really quickly, I'm Travis Jarae. I'm the CEO and founder here at Liminal. I'm joined by Andrew, who's our CPTO. It's also his birthday.
So can't think of anything more fun to do.
Okay, happy birthday. Thank you. Did you get a donut for your birthday?
I have had 2 donuts, 2 cakes, and some mangoes.
That's a good Portuguese birthday.
Brazilian blend as well.
Nice. Well, that sounds good. We're very, very excited for this. And so just for an opening perspective here, intelligence is rapidly evolving. And when we talk about intelligence, we're going to describe what that means from our perspective, as well as what our customers are seeing on a daily basis. But really, it has evolved to a point now where it's no longer a per seat transaction. We have moved beyond giving intelligence to individuals and now moving to giving individuals access to the power of AI and agents in their daily workflows. So that's what we're going to be covering a bit more today. So just to kind of preface the entire session, we have 4 main things that we want to leave you guys with. The first is going to be our 4 principles. These are our operating principles here from a product perspective, not just from product technology side, but also our go-to-market. We'll give you a reference framework that you can take with you even after today's conversation, how you're going to bring that forward to conversations with other vendors that you may be working with in the space, as well as renewal questions. Again, these are things that, hey, obviously I've been working with company X for some time. How are they evolving their packaging, their pricing, their product? And we want to make sure that you are aligning your expectations with the value that you should be receiving from intelligence platforms. And so just to kind of give us a little bit of a framing here, this is the value of an intelligence platform. It's something that has really guided Andrew and myself as we've built this product over the last 5 years. And if we kind of go back a little bit in time, it's probably going to resonate for many of you guys. A lot of intelligence was really about hindsight, describing something that happened. We're used to this. This is something like a newspaper. You open up a newspaper, it's describing something that is happening. And frankly, this is how majority of intelligence has been shared up until really the last 10 years. We started really moving into more of a diagnose pattern here, and this is the why did it happen, or the insight. And people have paid a lot of money for insights over time. This is really where you find consulting firms. Obviously, Liminal has a very large consulting practice here as well. This is where our customers like to use us. And up until recently, that has really been where the majority of folks are going to be getting their intelligence. But I don't really need to explain the power of AI to the folks on this particular webinar, but it has really opened up and been an absolute game changer in connecting insights into intelligence. And so that's really where we're sticking the changes here. And this is about predicting. It's about prediction, what's coming next. And this is a field, for the better part of the last 20 years. And frankly, this is what makes me super excited, is when we get to turn insights into predictions, which is giving us foresight. And that is what takes us to today, which is to the prescription stage. Again, highest value, most difficult. And this is what we like to call actionable intelligence.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk about what we've done from an intelligence platform, because as much as I think Travis was giving away some of the secret sauce of how we get to prescription, the nuance and what I hear from our customers and in our market build is about how do we deliver actual value on those frameworks.
So the anatomy of an intelligence platform for Liminal means layering data into intelligence and then making that available to your business. So as Travis was talking about diagnosing and describing, we are not a AI productivity tool bolted onto a legacy data platform. What we've been able to do is from the ground up orchestrate proprietary valuable data information in our first layer, automating signals, research, and what we do best, which is understand the future of the market, into our first layer. Across layer two, we connect that through our taxonomy and ontology. Those are the rules to understand what signals should drive what actions. Again, to the previous graphic, it's really around what are we able to build on top of a data layer. Then, of course, we want to make sure that analysts and human expert systems are in the verification loop so that we understand we are not just delivering AI generated signals without oversight, but keeping the human action in the loop. And then that comes across all of our services. For us, that means Command and GTM, our two platform products, but also through AI enablement and integration tools like the NCP service. One of the craziest things that we've been seeing in the market is that spend is higher than ever, and more than half of software licenses are not in use. So right now, about 46% of total licenses are just completely unused. Organizations consolidate, but since just a couple of years ago, you've seen 5x price increase. So how do we avoid silos? How do we avoid waste? How do we make sure that investment in sophisticated intelligence tools turns into revenue for your business?
Yes. And I mean, this is something that me as a business owner tries to think about every day. This is what keeps us up. In fact, we were building this slide and you turned to me and you said, I'm going to bring up Grammarly because if you know me, I make sure everybody uses Grammarly here, the company, and I check usage. And then I drop people out of the usage chain. But I don't do that for every act. And I think we should. I think we need to do an audit on everybody. So that this really resonates for me personally.
And it's not just that seat licenses are increasing and utilizations becomes questionable, but also teams are trying to build things themselves. We're using Gen AI. We've done it internally. We're spending money on tokens much more this month than we were last year this time. The trend is already, it's this status 37 billion for last year. And I bet you it's close to 30 billion just last month across the US. So just an unbelievable rise in spend, but really questionable value there.
Yeah, and we're in Lisbon right now for an AI offsite with our team, and they want to get everybody shirts that says token maxing. And I'm not sure how I feel about token maxing right now, given these numbers. This seems like I kind of think that people are driving these numbers up. There must be a better way. There has to be a better
Finally, as we look at the forward trajectory, it's not just a forecast, but that trend really does accelerate. 65% of vendors putting a meter on top of their AI seats. You are seeing transition to hybrid models. We'll talk about what that looks like. And this is not just what we're hearing from our customers in our market, but really a trend across intelligence everywhere.
And so, yeah, we have 4 principles that I kind of brought up here early on in the session for the intelligence era. These are not just principles that we are going to talk about from a evaluating intelligence platforms perspective, but these are actually the core principles to how we develop our own product and have really guided us along every single decision that we've made over the past 5 years. And it really starts with better data. This has long been a huge differentiator for Liminal and for all really strong intelligence platforms. Better data equals better answers. Now, obviously, data isn't just what you need. You need to be able to convert that into insights and convert those insights into intelligence, like we walked through earlier with that value chain. But it starts with high quality data that we can vet and verify through multiple different operational processes. Second is we want to make sure that everything that we build is fit for your workflows. This doesn't mean that we want to make sure that we have an API that gets uploaded or gets used into your HubSpot or your Salesforce, but rather it fits your daily workflows. How are you using different tools? We want to make sure our platform is something that's a nice +1 to your existing workflows. And in some cases, maybe it will be your only workflow, but we understand intelligence lives everywhere. We want to make sure that it lives within your workflow. Third is everything needs to be cross-functional by design. The worst thing that can happen is a team internally can have the best intelligence and never shares it, right? That will die, especially when folks internally leave their jobs, they have turnover at the organization, maybe people get promoted into a new role, whatever it is. losing that intelligence is extraordinarily difficult for folks. And this is why we put so much value on institutional knowledge. Well, we believe that intelligence platforms are at a position now to have that cross-functional position by design. And then lastly, and probably frankly, my most frustrating part with pricing in general is the lack of transparency. So we fully believe in transparent consumption. We think it really has to be built in from the ground up. Similar to privacy by design, the same type of concept. How is my data going to be used? Great. How are my credits being used? And how is that translating to dollars and cents?
Let me ask you a question for you. So we have been, I say we, I mean you, at Liminal, and in our journey to become Liminal, started off in consulting originally.
Yeah.
Consulting, I think, strategy, especially deep market expertise, you talk about doing proprietary insights, bringing good data, bringing, leading expertise there. But do you have any war stories about maybe where it wasn't built to fit a workflow, or the cross-functional nature caused it to die?
I mean, I would say now our clients are going to hear this, so they'll hear out. But I would say most of our go-to-market enablement projects from 2019 to 2023 were really, really great. It was just like really super solid work, and we'd hand it off and we do these deliveries. And I remember being so proud of these 200-page decks that had all this information in it. And then, 6 months later, I'd find out the CRO was actually interviewing me, and or the CMO had got me a new job somewhere else. And, and then the next year, the CEO calls us up to do the exercise again. And I said, hey, actually, here it is. Now, former life, I used to work at Deloitte many years ago, and I guarantee you the partner would have maybe sold it the second project. In my case, I sent them the old deliverable and I said, let me know where we can help refresh things. But I think that is a really, really good example of lost value on something that's really important. The workflow there is strategic planning. That is why our platform starts with strategy and goes to execution, command to GTM. And we did that because of watching so many examples of this play out for our customers across the board. And it's not a big company problem. It's everybody. It's every company's problem. It's Liminal's problem, right? Everybody shares this exact problem. So let me quickly go through, we'll kind of split up some of these principles here, I was thinking. And so the first one here is better data, better answers. This is something that obviously is very near to me. I currently run our research team, have for a long time, run our consulting team. And I love doing it because what I get to show up to every day is amazing data and insights that just our clients are excited by, they're shocked by, that we have. And it really starts with the data collection methods, or what we call field intelligence. And so for us, we're constantly spending millions of dollars a year doing surveys, expert interviews. This is not just open web search. Now, that is something we absolutely do, and every platform needs to. This isn't just doing a couple queries within your ChatGPT or your Claude instance either, right? This is above and beyond to get the unique insights that really drive core decisions. So principle one, better data equals better answers. And when you're thinking about buying intelligence platform or platform solutions, understanding what their data advantage needs to be a critical question.
And the second piece of our principled approach to platform intelligence is how can we build it into your workflows? So some of the best work that we've done can be lost in silos of excellence. Consulting deliverables at a point in time, even if they hadn't been interviewing another place. If you have a narrow engaged audience, one of the principles we build on is how can you share and enable an organization? And we call that the workflow of the organization. It's not just knowing the data of how a market changed, but how do you make sure that that data and those insights and the intelligence gets across teams? Because when something happens externally, it's not one person's job to deal with it. In most cases, there's a workflow or a chain between teams, between silos. And so in this example, we're taking a look at how we help provide target account lists. We don't want to do that just by having data on what market do they serve, what pain points do they have, or what revenue do they make, but actually connect it to the strategy so the execution is continually powered by what you should be doing.
And principle 3 here is something I think that most companies struggle with. I kind of mentioned this already, but it's one shared layer for every function, cross-functional engagement. And this is actually the principle that drove us to unlimited users. So if you've been working with us for over a year now, you might know that our packaging and the way that we deliver our service has changed from a seat-based license to a unlimited license. And to do that, we also needed to get rid of our free users, because what we were seeing is we had two very different experiences for the same company, because we were limiting some to a pro user seat and some to a free user seat. Got rid of that. Now everything lives on one shared layer. This means that your strategy and your product team can gather insights, do their research, and kick that over to the marketing team to continue doing some work on, to build out a game plan, and then get that right in front of sales reps and form a battle card.
And finally, our fourth principle is make sure there's transparency in how credits are used. So as we've moved to this new model of supporting intelligence across the organization, there is the data layer where we connect not just your data, but our market and competitive intelligence to agents and a platform intelligence that can do the work for your team. You wake up on a Monday morning and there's a brief for you, And so how do we make sure that the work that's happening or the empowerment of the organization is tied to a credits model? Well, we do that through transparency. So there's no guesswork. There's no 100% bar for this 5-hour block. There's no please do extra spend, with an unlimited credit card. It's very transparent in just what are we trying to accomplish? What are the steps we need to take? And then each step is well understood and shared. Then finally, we're putting it all together. This is one workflow across the team. What we are really trying to show is when something happens, it is the right data connected to enable the decision to happen. You're discovering an opportunity in the marketplace. Maybe your competitor made a misstep. Maybe they've made a new partnership. Maybe a large company is changing direction and acquisition to come into your space. How do you respond to that? In order to do that, I do need to know what's happened. What do they do? What are the buyers' experience? How is the world going on? And those were the steps to deliver intelligence. But that's not enough. An alert is not the end. What do I do about it? You position your team with the opportunity to respond. In an example, maybe it's on quality. Maybe you're going to be, instead of competing on price against a new platform, you can compete on a better outcome. How do you mobilize your team, engage with your frontline, ensure that they have the intelligence of what just happened, right? We don't want to be a point in time, and intelligence can't go stale. Finally, the execution for us means improvement in how the team works towards the strategy. And that's the workflow of an organization coming together. Finally, just making sure we explain kind of the opportunity for us is a hybrid model. So credits are what does the work. There's a platform fee for the data for people who have been with us for a long time. The platform fee is the access to all of the things that you've enjoyed before. It's our research, it's our insights, it's our expert network, and it is the understanding of the market. The new opportunity is with agents that can accomplish work for your team. We want to make sure that the value is based on the answers you can trust, and that credits are the work happening in the support of your teams to be excellent. This is a good quote.
It's a great quote. Yeah.
This is a good quote. I think one of the most exciting things about this shift in model and the moment of the market is the feedback we're getting from customers saying this is finally fitting what we're doing. We've been hearing for years, how can we continue to update the consulting deliverable? Best work you've done next week. Can you make a tweak next week? Can you make a tweak? What we're able to deliver now across the organization is matching how work gets done. And I would encourage all of you to be challenging whether you are evaluating your current stack or building your own or looking to purchase. How are you thinking about, does this fit how work happens, or are you going to try to bend the organization to a new flow, which is always challenging.
Right. And I'm also going to remind, because I remember this exact conversation, and it had also something a lot to do with the fact that it's not just about building something, but it's about maintaining. And now you're able to maintain something that's fresh, something that has additional intelligence to it, something that is smart and real time, right? And people really feel that. And so people are willing to pay for it. And frankly, it's actually costing most folks less than the static deliverables that they used to receive for the same thing. So we pulled together 4 questions here to challenge the vendors out in market that if you're working with somebody else, and this is across the board, everybody has an AI enabled platform today, especially if you're joining this webinar, you're probably thinking about someone. So here are 4 questions that we ask. 1, does what we pay track to what the team actually uses? Going back to my Grammarly example, or my Airtable example. I didn't use that one, but that's another one where I'm constantly in there trimming. And then
Airtable's the reverse. Like, the usage kind of gets sneaky, and that's another side of control too, is if you're building duplicate systems, licenses, half the team's here, half the team's here,
you're double paying and then lives in 2 places. 2, is the data validated that fuels the platform itself or available on OpenAI? It's really easy to go make a really good agentic workflow that works directly for you. If you're looking for open web data, that is a easy way to do that. When you're looking at making really good decisions, open web data is not where we actually want to be focusing. We want to be thinking about our unique advantage. Assume all of your competitors are also running a script every morning with their agents to get the competitive information from the open web. 3rd, are product sales marketing ops drawing from that same layer? This is that cross-functional question, right? This is frankly somewhat of a frustrating point from the sales perspective for Liminal, right? Because now I need to talk to my product champion, who needs to bring in the marketing team, who needs to bring in the sales leader, who needs to bring in the operations leader. But I will tell you that longer sales cycle has meant that we've gone from having 10 people using the platform to having 150 users in the platform. And that usage cross-functional has really kind of shown up in our QBRs and just the overall excitement from our customers. And so make sure that this isn't necessarily a question for all of your intelligence platforms out there, but making sure your own team is thinking about it this way as well. And lastly, can we see what we'll pay in advance or only after the bill arrives? I feel like my OpenAI bill that I get, fun fact, the engineers actually signed my credit card or signed my phone number up for the billing for ChatGPT. And so once a month, I just get an alert that tells me exactly what they charge me. It's never the same.
It's never the same, and it's always a surprise, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, token maxing, I think we were.
Nuno's the token maxer. Yeah. Nuno, we're on to you, buddy. All right. So this is kind of bringing us to our conclusion here. So this is already something, if you've registered, it's probably you already received this. But if you were given this link, or maybe you're creeping over someone's shoulder at work watching this, you can go ahead, pull out your phone and hit this QR code. You'll be able to get this really great piece of content here. And lastly, you can probably tell that we're nerds. We like this stuff. I think we like this stuff. This is my only collared shirt. I don't know how to say it differently. Yeah. So we love this stuff. We want to hear from you. This isn't necessarily a sales pitch. We want to hear mostly about how you're using data, how you're using intelligence, what are your workflows, and we want to be a partner for you as you go out and discover ways to work together. So with that, any final thoughts before we move to Q&A?
No.
All right. Okay. Well, nothing like getting put on the moment for that. All right. So for Q&A, I'll kind of open it up here to the chat. We have some questions here. All right. Will the presentation be shared? Yes, we can share the presentation. That's an easy one. Do we have any other difficult questions?
Just as we're thinking about taking a moment to answer some questions, I am reminded of a conversation last week with, I was at a dinner with a couple of colleagues talking about not exactly token maxing, but how do you measure the ROI of AI enablement within your organization? There have been some recent publishes. The ones I'm remembering Salesforce specifically published a stat that about 70% of their seat license usage is down, but their bills are higher than ever. So you're seeing usage on the API, but not in the front of it. On the other hand, and what they're inferring from that is people are building their own AI agents to go and update CRM records, right? They do have a interconnectivity, but what is the improvement? How do you measure that? Is it worth the tokens that they're spending, especially at the large enterprise level? On the other hand, Microsoft last week published reports saying they're seeing negative ROI on AI adoption across the org. And that's in large part due to experimental usage. But, thinking about an intelligence platform, our principles, which I think are not a surprise to people, are that data leads to intelligence, leads to outcomes. I'm curious for you, how do you think about, how do you spot when you're missing data? When you see, like we're using Claude, it's connected to our Google Drive, it's connected to our CRM, to our platform as well. How do you suss out when something is missing useful data?
Well, I'll give you an example of where things were missing, and the team actually connected to a platform, and I think that would be our marketing team. So you're on our marketing. I think she's one of our top token users. Just
Big token.
FYI, she's in the room here, so she gets to know I know that. And I believe it's because she has a lot of agents running on SEMrush data, and now we've been able to run campaigns to be able to understand things a lot better in more real time, right? And that is something that was probably someone's full-time job, right? Maybe had additional resources for it. Now we can actually do that, and so I think that's a good example of, we knew that we had a gap. We didn't have the manual effort to keep up with it the way that we wanted. And now we're going to put the money to work on with using an agentic system tied to an intelligence platform, SEMrush in this case. From a research perspective, so when I'm looking at something, I'm trying to understand a trend, I really look at the N of a population on a survey. And if there is no N, that means there is no survey. And so I've come accustomed to trying to really dig deep into the sources. I think what I love most about our platform, we really took a lot of, I think, primary examples from platforms like Bloomberg that spent a lot of time making sure that we have proper sourcing and trusted sources and be able to stack rank sources. And so when you're using our platform, we're using that with data that's pulling in from trusted sources. And I think that's actually something that really shows. All right, Diogo coming in with a question. Thank you, Diogo. Travis says, how can, start live answer, okay. How can we actually define a real data, how proprietary needs to be versus contributory? For example, with Mindesk, they use Secretary of State data, which is public, but they process it to get intel better than anyone. Well, that's a great question, and I think ties really well into the customers here. So I'll leave Mindesk out of this and make it more broad for vendors that work at the identity space broadly, and this would include fraud and other types of companies here. I would also put the models and how the models have been trained to be able to extrapolate the information from someone like a Secretary of State data record, which might be public, but be able to map that into a bunch of other maybe open source or non-open source data. So having a complete view in a graph, we use graph here. I'm sure a lot of folks use graphs to be able to understand a complete picture. So you're taking a lot of available data, putting it together in a way that works because you've done this millions of times. So for example, Mindesk, right? They've done this millions of times, and that will improve the quality of the overall output. So that is the data mode.
You just mentioned, I think for me, one of the most interesting things about working here at Liminal with experts is we all understand data has facts about it, and you can put it together. One of the most interesting things that a subject matter expert will do is actually tell you the story of what's not in the data. So your example on, if the survey doesn't claim an in, there probably wasn't a survey. I don't know this, right? I know this now, right? But this is something that, like, an expert in the space notices when a pattern is missed and not just when a pattern is hit. The other side of this is in a survey that did have an N, 85% of buyers prefer, this type of data attribute or delivery mechanism. My reading on a survey is that's most of the buyers. Travis, and some of the things I've heard from subject matter experts here is like, well, what's the inverse of that? What does that say? 15% don't prefer that opportunity. Why would that be? What are the different facets I can think about it? And in this question, thinking about a beta mode for myself and what I've heard from peers is that yes, if you have better data that just builds a more accurate or more useful outcome, you will have that's a moat and an advantage. But when you take data into a product strategy, how you use it, and I think this example, I'm not as familiar with Middesk specifically, but if you are taking public data and using it in a more effective way than other people, that's probably because you really understand how it connects to intelligence, right? It's the story of combination, and so a product moat and a data moat go together in intelligence.
That's a great way to put it. I think, and by the way, we'll nerd out all day on that exact question. So moving to a question from Dan here. So it says, what is the best approach or method for engaging your existing vendors to open the discussion of transition from seat-based fee structure to a more outcome-based structure? It's a great question. If you're one of our customers, I can tell you, you haven't had a problem bringing it up to me. And I think it's really, I think it's a great conversation to have. Most folks are still in the seat-based pricing model. That is how they have driven their accounting system. That is what investors have put money into. It takes a lot to be able to change that pricing and packaging. It's a fundamental shift on how you think. And in fact, the way that you accrue revenue changes when you move from seat-based to consumption-based, right? Yeah, if you're selling tokens or credits, you have to have your revenue be associated with usage. If it's seat-based, you can usually count that ARR up front. So these are the types of things that companies are really wrestling through. I think what you should have a conversation with maybe your account manager or frankly your CSM about is saying, what can we do above and beyond what I get through the platform today? And how do I get it delivered to me where I don't have to add more seats? It's a nice way of saying I want more out of the platform without paying for more, and see what they come back with. But generally speaking, that is a difficult question, but I would say that overall, I would expect to see some form of hybrid relationship occurring over time.
If you don't have a finance leader challenging you to prove the ROI of every single platform has added AI lift on top of the pricing, then I think you probably have some deep pocketed investors who are just letting you relax for a little bit because it's coming, and the bolting on AI to large unstructured or unsophisticated data sets is where we see the most pain because it's large AI spend for questionable outcomes. So, I think challenging your vendors on that is very fair.
Yeah. All right. And next question here, and I'm going to call it out. If you guys have more questions, please drop them in. This one's from Joe. And it says, how did you navigate migrating from a per seat model to a pay per model with regard to clients you already have in subscriptions? Great question. For one, we're not changing what people have already purchased. We're giving that to them in addition to unlimited users. So we're increasing what they're able to get through their tiered access. This was actually a big decision for us. It's a fight at the board level because we didn't increase price. In fact, we lowered price for our lowest tier. And the reason why we did that is because we really believe that our platform is just that good. And that as you use our platform, you'll find more value out of it. Therefore, obviously, you want to buy more credits from us in the future. So we're making the bet on ourselves. We're aligning our incentives with your incentives. And from that perspective, it's actually a pretty easy sell. But if you're a customer already, this is just a +1. You're getting more, right? And in fact, majority, if you're a renewal cycle, you'll even see that you'll get a lot more credits on top of what you've already been experiencing at a discount today, because we want you to onboard to the platform and use it the way that it's intended. So I think let's see, we have any other questions coming in? If you guys have any more, we'll answer those. Otherwise, Andrew, it's your birthday.
That's true.
It's your birthday. And we're in Portugal right now, right? We have a lot of friends that are in Amsterdam for the 120 Europe show, but you are going somewhere after this. Where are you going after this trip?
I'm going to celebrate, and for me, that means Formula One. So, big event in Europe this weekend. So, the Monaco Grand Prix. If you see me in the general admission area, not the yachts, if you see me in the GA, feel free to ask me about data systems, and I'll be happy to talk about both F1 and intelligence.
Yeah, it sounds super fun. All right. So without any additional questions, probably end the webinar there. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. And if you have more questions, please do reach out. We'd love to have a conversation, whether it's about this transition in a business model sense, or if you want to talk about a little more specifically, or just the way that you're thinking about intelligence at scale for your organization. We would love to nerd out on it. Until next time, thank you guys very much for joining.